Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Power Up Podcast, where we take multiple guests from different places in the esports industry, whether it's marketing, sales, social media, etc., and we give you a quick discussion on how to get into the space, some of the things they are seeing within the esports industry, and just give you the most value possible if you are trying to enter full-time, part-time, or even for an internship within esports. This is the inaugural episode, and I could not think of a better person, honestly, than Dillon Pomeroy, aka Thunder Hips. Dillon was and is honestly my first mentor in the space, and he is someone that was an easy sell for me to have as the first person on this podcast. Just to give you guys a little bit of background about Dillon, he has a Bachelor of Science in Marketing from the University of Wisconsin-Eau Claire. He has sales experience with non-esports related entities such as Tom James, who's a worldwide manufacturer and retailer in custom clothing. He did some digital marketing for Transformation Digital Marketing Agency, and he's also done some of his own consulting work on the side. And most recently, in March of this year, he is now the marketing coordinator for the Minnesota Rokkr, and now most recently version 1.gg or version 1GG, who is the professional Rocket League team. So Dillon, welcome to the podcast, and thank you so much for joining us today.
Hey, thanks for having me, my friend. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, man, it's like I said in the little pitch there. This was an easy sell for me. Like it wasn't even close to who I wanted to have first on the podcast to kind of talk Dylan up a little bit. He is someone that is completely selfless and had no better reason to listen to this bugging kid in his Discord DMs asking for. I reached out to Dylan originally to get thoughts on my resume, and Dylan, without hesitation, was like, "Yeah, I'll help you out." And from then on, he's been a mentor of mine, so it was an easy sell for me.
Yeah, absolutely. We connected right away, man. It's what it's all about.
Yeah, man. So, Dylan, just to start off, and the easiest thing is how did you get into the esports space, and what prompted all of that, and just kind of your quick journey on that.
Yeah, I mean, well, we all are passionate about the industry, right? So
Mm-hmm.
there's no shortage of that. But I come from you mentioned there I did marketing consulting for a while, so I had my own business that took me all over the place. I was consulting for startups, different tech industry type of companies. I even worked with like cannabis and weed companies out on the West Coast for a while. Just some of these emerging industries that needed marketing help, and specifically startup marketing help. I know that's a little different.
Mm-hmm.
But what ended up happening was that was an easy segue into a passion of mine, which has always been gaming and esports. Especially as it blooms more and more in NA.
Mm-hmm.
But that's sort of my journey to get here, and since joining Rokkr and joining V1, it's been fun to be a part of the industry.
Yeah, and for you, was gaming something you've always done since growing up, and you've always had a passion for? Was it something you knew you kind of wanted to get into, like coming out of high school and stuff, or is it something that kind of lately blossomed from a professional standpoint?
Man, I was just talking about this with someone else, but I wish I would have been more into it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I was into it gaming forever. I mean, I had like the prototypical uncle that works at Xbox. Like I literally have an uncle that worked at Xbox. So I had all the new games. My little brother and I always played,
Mm-hmm.
but maybe dating myself a bit here, but growing up as a high school jock, I was, video games, Halo, COD, even a little
Mm-hmm.
bit was not as mainstream. At least, I mean, it was mainstream, but it wasn't like cool to be a gamer. There wasn't much streaming, if at all. There was no Twitch or even anything before that. So
Mm-hmm.
it was sort of a combo of things that I cared about, where marketing specifically, business. I've always enjoyed business. I've always been an entrepreneur,
Mm-hmm.
and the worlds collided when I actually started paying attention to the Call of Duty League. So, at that time, Call of Duty World League.
Yeah,
So,
CWL. Mm-hmm.
yeah, the C Dub. So that was what got me into it as a passion, almost
Mm-hmm.
like a hobby. And then I just started seeing things, man. I started, as I'm sure you do, and all of us do now, is I just started seeing opportunities. I saw things that stuck out to me where I could be an asset to the industry as a whole. And I think that's where a lot of us want to fit in, is just growing this thing that we all care about while we're involved with it from a professional standpoint.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree with you. And just a quick touch note, like I love how you said it wasn't kind of cool back then. Like me, I was a huge video game. I played 3 sports a year in high school, like super big jock, I guess is the best way to put it. But at the same time, I was a super big video game nerd. But I never professed that because it wasn't cool. And
Right.
nowadays it's flipped. Like nowadays when I meet someone that hasn't heard of some of this stuff, especially ones in our age bracket, I'm like, really? Like, you don't know about this? Like, it sells out stadiums now. Like, it's just, it's funny how it's flipped. And we've talked about this before, but like the next generation, I think you won't be the cool kid if you aren't into that stuff. Like, whoever has the biggest Twitch channel is going to be the popular kid in high school, not so much who can hit who can hit a baseball the farthest. Personally, I think that's where it will go.
I agree. I mean, we're already seeing it, right? People are, if you don't stream, it's almost weird, right? In
Mm-hmm.
tournaments, you now have to have a cam on. If you're, it's going to be such a normal part of our reality that you're dead on, man. You're dead
Mm-hmm.
on.
Yep. And so moving into kind of what some of the listeners might want to know about is when you first, now that you're in the marketing role, you've been into it for almost a year now, nearly a year coming up on it. What are some of the best practices? Because you're someone that has a very fresh experience on it. Best practices for someone that maybe has their marketing degree, maybe they've worked, in non-esports marketing roles, and they're trying to get in the industry. They have a passion for it. What is some of the best practices you would say, or what's step one of what they should be doing to try to get in the industry?
Man, step one. There's no step one.
Step one's the hardest thing, man, and everything.
It's step 1 through 8 on step
Yeah,
one.
it is.
That's a great question. To think that through, there's a few facets that came to mind right as you were walking through it. What I think specifically is just the blending of all of these departments. You're saying specifically like the state of marketing or what's the best practice or something like that. That encompasses these days social media, obviously content, video, graphic. It includes partnerships. It includes PR. It's this amalgamation. Is that how you say that? Amalgamation? I think that's the right word.
You're talking to a country boy. If it's over 2 syllables, it's not gonna go.
I can't spell it, but I think that's right. But it's this Frankenstein of making sure that a media style company, which is what a lot of esports teams are, esports orgs are utilizing sellable assets in an efficient way through marketing channels, which again are social media, are advertising, are even out of home like billboards or a typical commercial. Combining all of those facets into marketing is essentially where I would say is a huge start. I know you and I have talked about that a lot, where it's this blend of being really, really savvy with the industry. I think that's honestly the most important thing right now. I think people can come from other industries and be just fine. But at the same time, I think it's very important that we continue to grow the industry. And if people want to learn and are knowledgeable about it, that's a different story, because that could be appreciated. But honestly, taking a step in the first direction is being knowledgeable and then being able to think on the fly and combine all of those things while you're making important decisions, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's being multifaceted, and you're just echoing what I hear other people like Helena Malik, Blonde Venom, who's marketing manager for 2K Cavs Legion team, and Ben Mark, who now works for Face It. Like some of these other people, they've all told me the same thing. Like you need to be able to wear multiple hats at once while also like be a knockout at your original job. Pretty much. It's really hard. Like because I was like, Ben, like what can I do to improve? He's like, I don't know, man. Learn how to do graphics, learn how to video edit, learn how to do, make memes, learn how to do whatever you need. Like you need to be able to do multiple things. And then the other point is having knowledge of the industry. Like you said, I have nothing wrong with really sharp minds who've worked in like traditional sports, even, some of the Rokkr C-level guys, like extremely intelligent people.
Great example.
But like the very one of the reasons for this podcast is like, I think personally in the last year, we've kind of gotten away from just grabbing people who want to be in the industry. You take someone like Hitch, who's one of the biggest video editors in esports. Like he just wanted to be a part of it. And I think there's so many people out there who I'd rather have in this industry. I'd rather have someone who's average talent, but is engrossed in it than someone who is one of the sharpest guys at the table, but he's just doing it because it's a business opportunity, or maybe he kind of likes it. It's like half work, half not, maybe not. I don't know. But for me personally, I think we need to have more people in the industry that have grown up in it and know it like the back of their hand, basically.
Well, it's another language.
Yeah.
It literally is English, Spanish, French, like esports. Like if you wake up and Call of Duty has announced it's going controller and PC, but the announcement went out at 2 a.m. That is now your day. You have now the drama of the day. That's type of thing that if you're, and I again, I'm not super into other industries, so I don't know. That might be the thing if it's like that in fashion, or if it's like that in traditional. I'm sure it's like that in traditional sports more, but that is one of the things that I've told my buddies that are getting into esports, that are getting into just gaming the way you and I are, where it's Twitch is on all the time. It's not football Sundays. It's Valorant right now. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I just I'm always watching it. So having that angle is something that I think a lot of people miss, especially when they think of us all as such fanboys as well as being professionals within the industry. It's such a massive thing that changes in ebbs and flows,
Mm-hmm.
no matter what time of day it is.
Yeah. Yep. There's a
It literally doesn't matter.
there's a culture to it. Like I'm a huge
Big
NBA
time.
fan. Like I am like I would love for someone to try to like come up against me when it comes to college basketball and NBA basketball. I'll say it out front. Like I'm trying to make this comparison on purpose. Is like in the esports, if you don't watch or consume content or an esport for a certain amount of time, you are out of the loop. Whereas from a culture standpoint, from a ear to the ground standpoint, like you're just out of the loop. Whereas in traditional sports, I feel like you can skip a few games or you can go out for a week and you can come back to it and you might have a little bit of catching up, especially if you're on like a player management side. But for the most part, like you don't miss a whole lot unless something crazy breaking happened. Whereas in
Right.
esports, like if you're out of esports for a month, like good luck. Like the amount of catch up you're gonna have to do on what's happened and how it's progressed is unbelievable. I think it's just because of the infancy of the industry a little bit.
Mm.
But I agree. Like, yeah, being engrossed like me, as much as I watch esports, like I can't tell you what's happening in CS:GO right now, 100%. I can't tell you what's happening in like these random niche esports, other niche esports. I'm more of like Valorant, COD, and a little bit of a couple other ones, but those like take up my whole time. But
Well,
yeah.
you pick and choose. That's the other thing too, is that I know we don't need to do the whole traditional sports esports comparison already,
Mm-hmm.
but that's
Yeah.
always part of it, man. Is that people think that the four majors are what are being compared to all of esports. That's
Mm-hmm.
not necessarily what we're doing, right? Like, it's all these people, even streamers or athletes themselves are their own brand now. I pulled up XQC. We were watching Monday Night Football. My buddy's telling me how esports would never have their own day. The NFL has
Mm-hmm.
Sunday. The whole they own a day of the week. Blah 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 type of quote. And I pull up XQC playing Among Us to 80,000 people. I'm like, this is where marketing is going. It's
Mm-hmm.
intentional, influenced marketing that's really targeted at an engaged audience versus me who just has on Thursday Night Football because it's what you do. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Mm-hmm.
It's this next generation of really intentional marketing, if we're going to keep using that word, I guess. It's really intentionally targeted at these loyal fans of something we all care about. And I think that's the thing that brands and companies aren't quite seeing yet, that
Mm-hmm.
it's happening already, but when it continues to happen, will just be an avalanche, for partnerships, for incoming money, for investment, for equity, all those types of things.
Mm-hmm. I think that's a perfect segue too. And this is such a macro question. When you read it out, you're probably like this mother effer right here. But like, what is the state of marketing and esports in your opinion? You don't have to go too macro because that's such a broad question, and marketing can mean 10 things depending on who you're talking to. But what do you think is the state of like, I guess what's popular right now and the trends, and then where do you see it going forward, so to speak? Like, what are you caring about? I guess is the best way to put it.
Yeah, well, and to your point of it being a macro question, even the word marketing is its own macro,
Mm-hmm.
smattering of roles. Like when I owned my own business, when I was an agency, I always pitched my clients that I had four pillars that I specialized in, and that was website management, SEO, content, and then basically this all-encompassing idea of graphic design, video, like using all those components to create ads. Like, you know what I mean? There's so
Mm-hmm.
many things that you can consider like a pillar of marketing.
Mm-hmm.
It gets really diluted and convoluted. But to answer that, I guess one of the things I would say is that it's the coolest marketing right now.
Mm-hmm.
I know you have mentioned it in your classes, or I've had people that want to talk and use it as a project that we've chatted, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
The speed of marketing in esports is exponential compared to other industries.
Mm-hmm.
Again, even fast paced ones that we've talked about. So the overall state of marketing, in my opinion, is getting closer to this idea of nonchalant partnerships. Like,
Mm-hmm.
it's not this big commercial, it's not this huge groundbreaking deal, which are important obviously, but I think a good example, shout out BZ, but a good example is Formula One. BZ and I talk about Formula One a lot,
Mm-hmm.
and their move online, not online, but their move online during COVID, they actually extended their season. They added 2 more races. So what that means is that they have money. There's, the pandemic hasn't influenced them as much as other industries.
Mm-hmm.
Esports is kind of the same. We didn't take a huge hit. We took a hit, obviously, but the cool thing about Formula One is that means their sponsors are still paying. There's still partners. There's still viewership. And that's what marketing in esports really is angling for now, right? Like it's a few different facets only. It's viewership and how do those viewers convert into clients, into customers of these brands that we want to work with.
Mm-hmm.
And the overall state of marketing, I would say, is excited. Maybe that's the right word. Is
Mm-hmm.
excitable.
Yeah.
Because it's there. It's this big balloon, right? Everybody's waiting to pop it. It's been somewhat popped. There's these cool activations that are happening already.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but the opportunity is there, and it's the language between, like I said, 87,000 loyal fans watching XQC waiting to get a Taco Bell commercial versus just throwing, crap at a wall in front of a million people and seeing how many actually invest in whatever you're trying to sell them.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's an important thing that we work on is really segmenting our audience and taking them seriously. I think our generation, the next generation, is really smart, and on top of that, we're really skeptical.
Mm-hmm.
We want to feel heard. We want loyalty. We're kind of coming out of this era of cookies and like our intentions being tracked quite literally
Mm-hmm.
and be marketed that. And now we're in this opportunity of really cool things that we could be loyal to as long as we see them in the right spots.
Yep. And we've talked about this offline, but I've told you I think Gen Zers, and then even more niche, specifically esports, like Gen Z, late millennials, are like some of the smartest consumers ever because they've been exposed to cookies, because they've been exposed to target advertising, target market. They know they can see through BS so quickly it's not even funny. And when you pair that with, like, I just did my the paper I told you about with, so I had to do a paper on pick a viral video and why it went viral and why do you think it went viral. Well, I do everything esports related because I'm an asshole like that with my classes, and so I did it's not esports, it's gaming, but I did the Leroy Jenkins video from 10 years ago, and I thought that was
Beauty.
hilarious. And
Great choice.
but I actually found a couple of references of like why are new generations, what makes them hit the share button, what makes them support a brand over another brand that may be cheaper, and they came up with all these different factors, and some of the factors that came up for Gen Zers were like first to share, which is like they show their buddies like they're the first one to share it. Another one was inclusion, which is the biggest one in my opinion. They want to feel included. And then there was other ones, sentimental feeling, but it goes back up to the esports market and the consumer market is more emotional based. Like I know guys that like me, I will buy HyperX headsets because I even if they're a little bit more expensive because HyperX has sold me from an emotional standpoint, like a marketing standpoint. But then I have a Logitech keyboard. Like there's certain different things where I will purchase something because I'm emotionally attached to that brand more than other brands. And I think that's way more relevant in esports. So as a marketer, I think it's a little bit easier because, like you said, it's the excitement of it, and there's a lot of things you can play off of from an emotional standpoint. But it's also harder because converting emotional based marketing into sales and numbers is a lot. It's a lot harder to project that. Like when someone's like, "All right, where do you think where do you think we're gonna be in 6 months, a year?" It's like, good luck, dude. Like I try to give someone an honest opinion on that. Like, where are you gonna be in a year when it comes to growth and sales and things of that number, like actual revenue.
Well, that's because I think we don't know. I think that
Mm-hmm.
there's, people, again, to do this traditional and this traditional and esports comparison is that everyone always asks, like, what's the next ESPN for esports? And to be honest, there already is, in my opinion, there's ESPN esports,
Mm-hmm.
but there's Twitch. That's ESPN already. That's the way that we're going to take in entertainment. We're going to take in content. And like I said, the same way that our parents or our parents listen to talk radio, that's what Twitch is. That's what YouTube TV is going to be. That's why these deals like with the CDL and with Google are so massive from a macro scale, like you said.
Mm-hmm.
That's important. That type of growth and that type of expansion should be thought of very strategically. And I mean, to your point, like we can't even really decipher the trajectory, because the way that this is going to work long term, it's not there right now. Like,
Mm,
we're doing the things that keep this thing moving. Like, I've talked to you about how important franchising is, how important it is for legitimacy, how important it is for officiating, for ground rules to be set.
mm,
Um, that's part of year one of NFL, year one of NHL, whatever it might be. So the the building blocks are there. EU, APAC, all those are already doing the things. We're just a second behind, not even that much. But
mm.
NA is that's we're going to be able to be the ones that set the tone in a different way. And that's what's exciting about being a part about this industry, man, or being a part of this industry is we're setting the things, man. We're setting the building blocks. So
Mm.
it'll work. It'll work. It just is. It's going to be an interesting journey.
Yep, I agree. And to go on that point, and this is one of the things that we talked about before, is if there is somewhere, if there's not, you can pass this question. It's totally fine. But where is an area that you think could be more developed or looked at in the market, and like things that you think aren't being fully exploited like they could be, that you think would progress the industry as a whole further?
One that I like to talk about, that's actually a great question too. I've never seen that question before. So one that I like to bring up is just I don't know what to call it besides the Marshawn Lynch.
Mm-hmm.
But my uncle lives in Seattle, Microsoft uncle,
Mm-hmm.
ironically, same guy. When I would be out there, they're big Seattle Seahawks fans. And when I was visiting, there was one, I'm probably embellishing it a bit now, but there was one commercial break.
Mm-hmm.
Marshawn Lynch was in an HVAC commercial. He was in like the local bank. He was a part of every like little
Mm-hmm.
local thing. And I thought it was a really he almost like got the bit. You know what I mean? Like he almost memed himself. And he knew it was kind of ironic. He knew he was used car salesman guy. He knew he was just taking
I mean,
whatever.
that's his personality. Marshawn Lynch is one of those, alpha type. Like he's just perfect for television, to be completely honest. Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah.
And that's something that esports has already, or gaming in general has already beat to the punch, is that all these guys are personalities before they come into an org, versus the other way around where a franchise makes a player, right? Like a
Mm-hmm.
sports franchise. So one thing that I think leaning into more is that whole mantra of your brand being represented by individuals,
Mm-hmm.
not a bunch of individuals representing your brand. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It's this thing that there's a reason FaZe has FaZe scissors, FaZe, they have their name in front of it, 100T, all these branding, little minute branding things. Um, when we talk about what could be more developed, it's those things where you really lean into, they're not smaller names, obviously, they're just their own brand. So you
Mm-hmm.
lean into the smaller things, and you have this local angle of growing esports on a small scale
Mm-hmm.
that turns into a large scale. Like I was talking to a buddy today, um, actually over at Mankato. Shout out Paul, over at Mankato State, and we were talking about how important it is for these colleges to get esport programs rolling.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but he was telling me like how it's been an exciting journey. We talked like last year, and now they have a little bit of an org. They have a club going, and that will be the next feeder. It'll be the NCAA football. Like, how
Mm-hmm.
cool will it be on a Saturday or whatever day that it's like a COD Saturday, and it's college COD, and there's all these different prospects.
Yeah,
Like,
the Alabama Call of Duty team versus like Michigan. Like,
I get like
yeah,
chills, man. Like, I
yeah,
want that
yeah,
so
yeah.
bad. And we're setting those though. We are doing the things right now
Mm-hmm.
that will make that be a thing someday. And then all of this, all like, again, this is all about marketing, but that it all just comes together. And I get
Yeah.
pretty excited about that, as I probably just showed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree with you. And even just like a micro example, like I've done some stream team lead stuff, as you know, and like I've had a lot of people ask me like, how do we get the streamers involved in the org? Like, what do we have to do? And it's like, no, dude, you have to flip that question. Like, how does the org get involved with the streamers platform? If you're trying to use their platform to build yours, you're ass backwards. And I was ass backwards for a time. Like, I'm not saying like I knew it from the very beginning. When I first started doing that, I was like, how do we get them involved in X org? No, it's the other way around. Like, how can you input your brand into what they're already building? And that's also a lesson for streamers out there. Like, that's how it should be. But yeah, so I agree. It's individually run based. Optic Gaming is the perfect example of that, where individuals run the brand doesn't run it. Regardless of how it ended, it didn't matter. Like when Hector and those creators left, that whole fan base left. So So
Very timely. Very timely.
yeah,
You bring that up.
very timely thing to bring up. That's a whole. I could talk for that for 30 minutes.
Separate, different podcast.
Yeah, we're dating the podcast, but it's right when Hector broke that he acquired Optic Game, or at least allegedly. Nothing's confirmed yet, 100%. But yeah. So looking into what's been more developed, I guess one thing I wanted to hit on before we get into our final little session here is what are some things you wish you would have known? Like I always like to talk about my failures. Like if you want to be successful in life, talk about your failures. Like and you need to be comfortable with failure, and you need to seek out failure, like if it's crazy as that sounds. So what are some things that you wish you would have known that maybe you can help someone else coming into the space, and things where you're like, damn it, Dillon, why'd I freaking do that? And just something to help somebody else maybe along their way.
Yeah. I like that. I love answering this question, and I think I answer it different all the time.
Because there's so many to
But
choose from. I know I have so many.
exactly.
Yeah.
No. Well,
Yeah.
it's all relative, right? And I
Mm-hmm.
think like one that just came to mind as you were saying that, and it's partly because of our relationship, I would say. But the two that came to mind are just being confident. Like trusting in your knowledge is the most important thing in this space. If you know your stuff, if you know the industry, if you get the memes, if you get the bit, you're a step above. I mean, obviously someone who doesn't, and a lot of people that are in the industry are working hard or trying to learn it. Like that's a really cool angle that I think a lot of people discount themselves because of their age, because of their um, executive level, because of if they have a
Experience.
degree or not.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, their experience, anything like that. So just trusting in your confidence, I would say, is a huge step. If you believe, for me, it just happened to be esports and it happened to be marketing,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm good at marketing. Like I don't doubt that in myself, and I enjoy esports. Like let's put these two together. So being confident in your skill set, being confident in your knowledge, your expertise, that's a big key. And the other is a little more minute, but trust in the social media process, trust in DMs, um, literally slide into people's inboxes, talk. I know I say it to you all the time, and I've said it probably numerous times on this podcast already, but we're building this thing right
Mm-hmm.
now. Any DM, any conversation, anything like this is a part of the history of Call of Duty, is a part of history for Rocket League, for esports in general. And if you're passionate about it and you enjoy it, like turn it into work, like make cool things, like some of the decks I've seen that you do, articles. I love writing. Like those are things that I enjoy.
Mm-hmm.
Make it part of the history of this industry,
Mm-hmm.
and that and the overarching. I said slide in DMs, but I mean it. Like those are the cool ways that you and I have connected. I mean, I'm looking at my Discord right now, and I wouldn't know any of these people if it wasn't for esports, if it wasn't for Rokkr, V1.
Mm-hmm.
We're all just in this together, man. It's so cheesy, but we're all growing this thing. There's no competition. We're all just growing this thing.
Yeah, it's true. If you're a professional, like to Dylan's point, is there's people like with this podcast, some of the episodes coming up that we have to lock on recording days and stuff. But like I threw that DM out there because of guys like Dylan and other people like telling me like, and Gary Vee, I'm a huge fan of him. I've referenced him like 30 times in my podcast. But he said people are always like, what should I do to be like trying to grow this? And he's like, how many people have you Instagram DM'd in the past week? And they're like, oh, like 20. He's like, you need to be DMing like 500 creators. And so like it's that mentality. And it's not. And when we say that, I want to bring this point up. I know Dylan means this too. I want to expound upon it, is when we say slide people's DMs, don't just be like, hey man, what's up? Like I'm doing this. Like you don't have to be static robot-y, but have some level of professionalism. Have a game plan of like what you're doing, why you want to do it, how it can bring value to them and bring value to you. But at the same time, the main point is like reach out to people. There's been people I reached out to where I was like, there's no way this person's going to answer me. And 2 days later, they're like, yeah, it sounds really cool. Like, let's lock on a date. And I'm like, wait, what? Like,
Yep.
you have no clue who I am, and I have no cool org behind me talking about it. That literally happened. I'm not gonna say who, but on LinkedIn last week, I was like, why are you responding to me right now? But I'll take it. Yeah. And to your first point, like Dylan's also hitting me in the feels because he knows how shamelessly humble I am. So like coming from someone who will not give himself credit unless he's pretty much forced to, do it, because there have been in times, and I saw this in my military background as well. If you don't appear confident, people will see you as incompetent, and even when you're not, you could be the smartest person in the room, but if you aren't, you don't have to be boastful. But if you're not confident in what you're doing, then you're just as useless as somebody who doesn't know what they're doing, in my opinion, or close to it. So both those points are really well put together, and I appreciate that feedback.
Yeah, I love that one. That's really cool.
Yep. So anybody getting into the esports space, like or especially marketing, like those are two things you can look at to help improve yourself. For the last point of this podcast, because I wanted to wrap it up, each one of these episodes, I'm going to try to pick something with the guest, something that we wanted to talk about. And Dylan didn't have anything specific, so I had a bone to pick. But we'll try not to go too far of a down a rabbit hole. I always have an issue for anyone listening with comparing traditional sports marketing to esports marketing. We've kind of already touched about it a little bit in the podcast, but people I think are trying to marry up traditional sports and esports too much in multiple different departments, not just marketing. But kind of give your thoughts on compare and contrast to traditional sports marketing as opposed to esports marketing.
Yeah. We definitely have brought up a few points that would factor into this, but I think overall, like the overarching comparison is just the two industries as a whole are very different on what they're built on.
Mm-hmm.
I've mentioned it already, but esports marketing or esports in general, we're a media company. That's what the goal always should be: is first to press, any updates, press releases, like that's where people go. We go to Twitter first, right? We check the news via Twitter. That's what we're doing. And so I think that the traditional marketing side of things, I know we're talking, like, I just went again sports wise, but just traditional marketing in general is very slow. It's
Mm-hmm.
it's very just slow. I worked with a startup healthcare, like, hospital chain. They were pretty lean for a hospital, but it was old school, man. It's very slow. It's very like, let's get a graphic out on Thanksgiving type of thing, versus esports where it's reactionary.
It's like if you've
It's
been on Twitter this morning and looked at this, like yeah, it's
groundbreaking.
yeah,
It
exactly.
happens so fast, and if you miss it, it can be a PR nightmare. I mean, it's like I said, all these things are factored into marketing so much now that the biggest change or the biggest comparison between traditional marketing and esports marketing is just the pace of it, and the fluidity of it, I guess would be the better
Mm-hmm.
word. Like, to change on the fly, to have Rokkr Royale be Tuesday, Wednesday, and then it only be Wednesday. Like, these are things that happen fast, and we don't like to lose. We're all competitors, being gamers, right?
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so we all try to win all the time, and however we get to win, sometimes there's an interesting angle there, and that's where these big ideas come from. So traditional marketing sets the base. I think esports marketing, I think these tech startups and other, even social media outlets, like, that's where marketing is already going, and there's going to be some really really cool freaking things that happen, because of this space, because of the individuals that work here, the orgs that are involved. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I know I get pretty excited about it. I know I'm passionate about it, but it is a very cool thing to be a part of, and to have individuals like yourself be a part of. We're moving this thing, and it's a very cool thing to be a part of.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, to sum up what you said, I think it's just pace is the word. Like it's literal pace. Working with tradition, I haven't done a ton of traditional marketing, but I have worked even just in traditional sets, and it's more of like, you know, in my opinion, for every one or two things you do in a traditional sense, you've already done like 8 or 9 little micro things in esports, and then you have to do that. You don't have a choice. It's not like what is your task for a day. It's okay. I have this in the background, and I got to do all 7 of these other things while also being spun up on everything else. Because people don't
So
most
true.
most esports consumers don't find you through a Google search. Some do, but not a lot through a Google search or through a website. Like I can't tell you. I can tell you on one hand how many esports websites I've been on in the last 6 months. It's
Mm-hmm.
just the nature of consumers. Like they're gonna find you through Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, even Facebook, like all these, like whatever the newest social media platforms are.
Yep.
Um, I would say I would venture to guess this is an arbitrary number. Like numbers are made up and rules don't matter, but I would say 80 to 90% of how people find you is through social media now. So like, and social media in itself is normally its own job. So as a marketer, like that's like now you got to deal with social media. But yeah, it just goes down to pace. I think is the best way to
It's a good
say
way
it.
to sum it up.
Best way
Yep,
to, is
accurate.
pace. Um, Yeah, Dylan, for anyone listening, again, this is an inaugural episode. I'm trying to make these episodes for you guys, somewhat quicker, not like hour-long podcasts, somewhere between 25, 35 minutes, depending on the pace of the conversation. Just kind of give you a little bit of insight on somebody that is working in a place that you want to be at. Like, they are where you want to be. So seeing how they think, what their brain is looking at, like what they're looking at, what their brain is thinking, and just some of the things that they're addressing, hopefully it can help you kind of set the framework for what you want to do, and how you want to approach things later on as you get more into this space. But Dylan, thank you so much for joining us. And before you head out, Dylan, do you want to shout out any of your stuff, and we'll get on our way?
Yeah, no, again, thank you for having me. I'm honored. It's great to have you back in the States as well. Welcome. But
Yeah.
yeah, no, at Dillon Pomeroy on Twitter, just my first last, and then at Thunder_hips if you ever want to catch me on Twitch. But slide in those DMs. Those are the two places I am. And I mean, if we connect there, we'll connect everywhere. We'll connect Discord. Like, I know I can't say it enough, but slide in DMs and let's keep growing this thing. It's super fun to be a part of, and like I said, it's an honor to even be on here chatting about it. It seems surreal for me, so it's an absolute pleasure, my friend.
Yeah, man. And for anyone listening on podcasting platforms, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, I'll have Dylan's Twitter in the description so you can look him up there. For anyone on YouTube, all of his social links will be down below. I will highlight his Twitch because he's already close. He's getting up there, partner. It's gonna happen. I give it a couple months.
Keep grinding.
No, but yeah. So if you want to watch some good Warzone, some Call of Duty, maybe a little Valorant or some other different game, Rocket League. Now he's learning with some guys because now I just went free to play. But yeah, check him out, guys. Please give him some love because he deserves it. And yeah, for the DM thing, he's not kidding. Like if he has the time to respond to you, he's going to. That's just I know he's totally comfortable with me saying that. So, but yeah, thank you guys so much for listening, and we will see you guys next time on the Power Up Podcast. Thank you so much. See y'all.